Okay, so the next one that I have in mind always piques my interest because that I can think of, it's the only one that I don't know that I would consider a plant in the way that I would consider a fruit. So that's the papaya.
Oh, okay, so you're curious what the spiritual properties of it are? Or
Yeah,
like how
because-
fruits are different than plants?
Well, one, yes, how fruits are different than plants.
Okay.
Because obviously the papaya grows on a plant, but it's interesting to me that I think it's the only fruit in our line.
Well, okay, so
Well, I guess the Wednesday soap has sweet orange.
So your question is going to be, it's going to be really related to, and I've said this before in other videos, so if it sounds repetitive, I apologize, but the portion of the plant that we select for it to have its greatest benefits for you on the emotional and spiritual level are going to be very, very specific. So you're saying we don't use that many fruits. We don't really use that many fruits, and it's interesting because that's very different than the way probably a lot of Western herbologists would approach what they would feel is going to be the strongest or most potent part of the plant. Usually that is the fruit or it is the flower.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not always the case if we're looking for something that's going to have the strongest impact on the emotional and spiritual levels. Papaya is kind of a bit of an exception, and it's interesting because we're looking for the seed. So we use the papaya seed, which is in the fruit,
Yep.
as the extract.
Interesting.
And the nice thing about papayas, I'm going to look up its spiritual properties because I can't remember off the top of my head. It's used in traditional cultures as like in conjunction with celebrations. So like lots of weddings and other sort of like happy events. But it's also, I think, used in some traditions for promoting fertility.
Oh, interesting.
So not what we're using it for, so people don't have to, if they're worried about that, they don't have to worry about it. But that's what I'm going to look it up. It's really related to having relaxation effects. But it's, okay, so this is why it's interesting. I just looked it up. So on the energetic and spiritual level, papaya is going to be really helpful for helping to heal the emotional body from that which has been lingering. So that means, if you're wondering what an emotional body is, you have a physical body, you have a mental body, you have an emotional body, and then you have spiritual bodies. And there's people and researchers out there that have done really interesting work on delineating where those are, trying to understand specifically how those work on the electromagnetic fields, how far they extend beyond the physical body, and depending on who you read and who you talk to, that could be anywhere from, on the emotional body level, it can be very close to a person's body, or it can extend out a little bit. All that just to say that your emotional body is real. It has the same functions as your physical body, and the same functions as the mental body. And so papaya is really super helpful for helping to heal that from things that are lingering. So what do I mean by lingering? I mean old wounds, things that we haven't forgiven, old grief. I had a teacher once who told me that not forgiving is like eating off of dirty plates. And I was like, oh, that's such a good, like, it's just like you have like a visceral response to
you're
that.
like, oh, yuck.
Where you're like, oh, yuck. So papaya helps to sort of soothe the emotional body, so that if somebody is wanting to move forward and let go of old things, there's a bit of soothing there that happens. And that's, you can imagine then how that trickles down into the physical body and is interpreted as releasing stress, releasing relaxation, right? Because you're not holding on to old grudges and stuff that happened last week, last year, last decade. The papaya is going to help come in and sort of soothe that.
Perfect.
So did that answer your question? Because you were wondering the difference between the fruit and the plant.
Yeah, it did. And I think because I mentioned the sweet orange, let's talk about the sweet orange as well.
Okay.
Just because I mentioned it, and I would hate for someone to be curious and then we never
Okay,
touch back
let me
around
look
to
up
that.
orange specifically, because I know in my research we covered quite a few different types of orange.
Okay.
And so the sweet orange specifically, We've got a lot of oranges. Covered like bitter orange and for the orange we specifically use the portion of the plant that a lot of folks that would be extracting essential oils are going to be. So we use the rind of the fruit, which is great. I also love if we can get our hands on the flower, because that's going to be our neroli blossoms, right? And neroli blossoms are wonderful. There's obviously different species of neroli because there's different species of orange. So typically when somebody says neroli, they're referring broadly to the orange blossom. And we can make that another topic for another day. But so supportive, especially for women. We've got a different response to neroli than men do.
Interesting.
But really, the best thing about orange is that it's going to be really supportive for you to help build up your life force energy. So I won't go too far into there between light force versus life force. So for now, you can broadly think of it as chi.
And both light and life fall under chi?
Yeah, I mean,
roughly.
Okay. Those of you who have studied Chinese medicine, Qigong, acupuncture, you will know that that's a very, very broad term. I'm not doing it justice because, of course, there's many different types of Qi.
Nice big umbrella.
It's a nice big umbrella. But for now, I think that helps people understand is it will help you to gather up your life force energy. And life force energy, we can use that up during the day, right? So anytime you have an interaction with somebody or your thoughts and feelings are going out, like it's easy for people to get their life force energy spread out over time and space. It's part of what contributes to jet lag.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as you're a little bit too spread out over the time and space.
Oh,
there's
my
part of
goodness.
your life force you've left back home, right? And now you're in a new spot.
No
and
way.
You're spread out over time and space. I had a Qigong teacher once. He was a wonderful guy, and he would talk about we'd be in the middle of class, and then we'd get up for a break, and he'd say to somebody, "Oh, you left too much of your energy in your chair. You need to gather that back up." And so there's an understanding in those traditions about how to not only gather your energy, but then how to intensify it or to concentrate it. And so it's a fascinating topic of conversation, which is just to say that orange, specifically the peel, and I love the essential oil for this too as a preparation, is really helpful for helping to regather back up your life force energy. So some people might think of it as being grounding, which fair enough, it is in a way, because when we say you're grounded, we mean you, as much of you is right here and is right here right now.
Perfect.
So some people feel like, oh, that's their experience with orange. Absolutely, that makes sense to me. But the quickest thumbnail I can think to give you on that is it gathers up the life force.
Oh, okay, that's two really good ones.
Yes. And it smells good.
Yeah, it
Just
definitely
so
smells
good.
good. Yeah, they both do.